Hello fam, happy Wednesday, March 25th. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you and welcome to all the new folks to the family. We appreciate y'all being here and I'm so happy that so many people are finding these videos informative and helpful. They're really helpful for me to do as well as we all sort of try to plow through and navigate and figure out what's going on and what is truth and what is myth and in this crazy COVID-19 world we live in right now that is so ever changing. So thank you all for joining. Just a couple of other things before we jump into the big news of the day and your questions. Your questions are fantastic. And some of them, there are just no clear-cut, plain, basic, yes and no, black and white kind of answers to. I think that's really important for all of us to remember that as we sort of navigate this COVID-19 world and continue to learn and work through it together, okay? So you might not get the most satisfactory response to your questions from me in this video. I just want a fair warning, okay? And then finally, some of the new folks who have joined have been like, who are you? Like, what are your credentials? I love that. You should always ask people, what are your credentials? Like, why you? So just so you know, I am a nurse practitioner. Specifically, I am an adult gerontology acute care nurse practitioner. I'm dually certified with that, I guess. And I am also finishing my doctoral work at UCLA. I should be done this June. It's a Doctor of Nursing Practice is what I'll have. And I did my work in oral HIV prophylaxis and social media, interestingly. So I think there's something to the social media and medical education thing. What do you know? Okay, so the big news today, you're going to hear this term a lot. It's called convalescent serum. Sort of fancy talk for we take the blood of someone who had COVID-19, tested positive, got sick, got better. We take their blood and we give it to somebody else who might need it, who is really sick. So the FDA just approved this to be used, but here's the caveat, approved it to be used in compassionate care situations only. So when someone is very sick, they may have tried other therapies, other modalities, supportive care sort of things to help this person fight, and it's not working. The FDA just now said, okay, you can take a crack at this and get blood from someone who recovered from COVID-19 and give it to someone who has COVID-19 but is really sick with it. Does that make sense? So this is not approval for a clinical trial. This is not approval for mass usage. This is not going to be like the first line of therapy for everyone who has COVID-19. But it's very interesting because there have been so many really good anecdotal reports, meaning no one's officially doing research, but what physicians, nurse practitioners, scientists, researchers are saying is we've taken blood from people who survived COVID-19, given it to people who are really sick, and it could be helping, okay? So I just wanted to explain that. That was kind of the big news today. Your questions are amazing. Question number 1. I take an ACE inhibitor to manage my hypertension. Should I consider switching medications until this thing calms down? Amazing question. Where this is coming from is that there's some thought process about ACE inhibitors, angiotensin receptor enzymes, okay, that work within your kidneys to help manage your blood pressure. They also create receptors on the cell wall that may or may not make it easier for the virus to get into our cells, okay? That's where this is coming from. We have very little research that that's actually what's going on, that taking these medications could increase those ACE2s and make it easier for the virus to get in. Lots of science talk here. Bottom line, American College of Cardiologists, the European cardiologists, lots of these groups are saying it's still important that you keep taking your ACE inhibitor or your ARB right now, but talk to your primary care provider about it because this is a very worthwhile conversation to have, okay? Question number 2, I take Plaquenil on a regular basis for lupus. Will it be difficult to get my medication on a regular basis because of the demand of this? So interestingly, just last week I was saying Sanofi, the maker, is like, oh, we're cool, we got enough Plaquenil. All of a sudden, there's been a run on Plaquenil / hydroxychloroquine, okay, same medication. There's been a run on this. Literally, people are just prescribing it in hopes that maybe it's going to work, and now we're facing a shortage. So if you take hydroxychloroquine for any reason, lupus, RA, etc., I would talk to your primary care provider much sooner than later to understand what a strategy can be for you to be sure that you get the medications that you need before they run out. Because what we don't need you doing is having an RA or a lupus flare on top of potentially getting COVID-19. Does that make sense? Excellent question. Number 3, is there a risk to getting pregnant right now? Is there a risk to the fetus? Long answer short, we don't really know. There was one small study in China that showed 9 women who were in their 3rd trimester who were all positive for COVID-19 and then developed that bilateral interstitial pneumonia we've talked about before. They all went on to recover, and there seemed to be no early stage documented impact to the babies that they went on to deliver without issue. But that's only 9 women, only in a Chinese population in one area. Does that make sense? It's not a really great research study because it's just too early with the virus. We just don't know. Again, call your OBGYN, your midwife, your OB nurse practitioner. Call them right away and say, hey, I might be pregnant, or I'm in this stage of pregnancy. I may have come in contact with COVID-19. It's a great conversation to have. Be in touch with them, okay? Number 4, if you test positive, treat yourself, then test negative, can you get it again? Theoretically, yes, you can. And we may have seen this a few times in other countries before. There's a question of whether or not the tests might have missed a window where you had it, but it wasn't picked up by tests, because we're still not overly sure how completely accurate and sensitive the tests are. We're going to get to that in a minute. You probably have developed antibodies against COVID-19, kind of just like we talked about in the beginning, where people who have COVID-19 have gotten over it. In some compassionate care, like end-of-life scenarios, we're taking their blood and we're giving it to people who have it because you have developed the antibodies against the virus. So theoretically, you could get it again, but your likelihood is probably much lower because your body knows how to fight it off now. Does that make sense? Next. I think this is number 5, right? Should we be reusing N95 masks on positive patients? No. You have to assume that the particles from the virus are still on the outside, and any sort of manipulation of that mask, taking it off, putting it back on them, whatever, is going to cause spread of the virus to your gloves, to anywhere else. This was specific from a healthcare provider who I think is running into a situation where you're starting to run out of masks in the hospital like we've heard about. I still say do not reuse the mask unless you absolutely have to, and go by, obviously, the directive of the healthcare institution where you work, okay? And people at home, if you have your hands on an N95, first of all, give it to someone who needs it. You should be staying home. You don't need to wear it at home, okay? 6, how accurate are the tests? Do we know how often we see false positives? Still too early. Just so you know, right now, some of our influenza testing that has been around for a long time is somewhere only between about 50 to 70% accurate. So we might not know, even in the long term, how accurate this test is. We also should not have an assumption that we're going to reach 100% accuracy of this test, okay? My guess is it's probably pretty good because we have fairly good tests for some of the other coronaviruses like SARS and MERS, but it's still just too early to know how many of these tests are showing up with false negatives, what is the accuracy of it, or false positives even, okay? It's great question, hang on to it, we'll keep talking about it. Too early for a solid answer. 7, should people with compromised immune systems or the elderly be ordering food from restaurants? As much as I want to say yes, because it's difficult for sometimes those individuals to have groceries delivered or go out to the grocery store. We're telling them to stay home, right? But then how are they going to eat? The safest answer, I still believe, is probably no, because we know that COVID-19 can live on certain surfaces from hours to days. And so if COVID-19 happens to be on that plastic that your takeout food came on, it might still be there. So then you're touching that plastic when you bring it into your house. Does that make sense? I think it's less of a concern for people who are not elderly or immunocompromised. Like we talked about in my previous video, you're gonna dump the food into one of your own containers. You're gonna wash your hands. You're gonna throw those containers away. You're gonna wipe down the counters. You're gonna then microwave your food for long enough so that it gets so hot you can't eat it right away. But I think for the elderly and immunocompromised, as difficult as this is for me to say, I don't think if you're being super safe, ordering takeout is safe. I don't think it is. Number 8, is there any benefit to microwaving personal mail just like we would microwave food to kill the virus? I cannot find any evidence that this works. And all I can seem to find about this, because I didn't know this one, all I can seem to find about this is that it's really dangerous. We probably shouldn't throw anything in the microwave but microwave approved containers and food, okay? So don't microwave your mail. Number 9. I've heard a lot about some people losing their sense of smell or taste if they have coronavirus. Is this true? All right. This one's super interesting. See, I changed positions. I got excited about this one. It's really interesting. We're finding this from almost every country that has had a larger outbreak. Early on, people who otherwise have no other symptoms seem to be having either a loss of sense of smell or taste or both, because the two are inextricably linked, right? Your sense of taste is very connected to your sense of smell, okay? They work together. We're finding a lot of people, to the point that some researchers, some physicians and other public health individuals are saying we need to actually institute this as a research item. Like, we need to go research if this really is an early symptom of COVID-19 infection. Because if it is, if the only symptom that people have is loss of smell or taste, but they have no other symptoms, we can start quarantining those folks right away. We can start testing those folks early and saying, aha, you lost your sense of taste? We're in a COVID-19 outbreak. You probably have it. Stay your butt at home for your 14 days. See if symptoms develop. Either way, even if you don't get tested, you've been quarantined, because we're finding out so many people early on lost this either sense of taste or smell. It's very interesting. For the record, this is not an official symptom. We can't go, like we say, we know that fevers and cough and shortness of breath is. We can't go that far yet, but there have been almost overwhelming anecdotal reports of this that researchers and public health officials are calling for this to be researched, okay? All right, so kind of an extra long video today because I had a lot to get to because there wasn't videos the last couple of days. Again, if you guys have questions, concerns, new information, whatever, all of that, put them in the comments below of wherever you're watching this. This is where I get the questions from what you guys put out there. And I hope everyone is doing very well and staying safe. Listen, social distancing does not work unless we all do it. So I know it's super hard right now. It's really hard. People are going crazy, but keep it up. If we do this and we do it the right way, it'll be over sooner. Okay? Love you, fam, so much. Thank you for everyone being here. And I will talk to you tomorrow, fam. Bye.